All right, so roast chicken. You know, that lemon herb roasted chicken recipe is really calling to me, and I think it's something everyone wants to master, right? I mean, who doesn't love a perfectly juicy chicken with that crispy skin? It's like the holy grail of home cooking.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so many things can go wrong, even though it seems so simple.
Right.
But when you nail it, forget about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like it.
It's true. So this recipe we're diving into is a great blueprint, but even with easy recipes like this, there are these little hidden levers that make all the difference.
Yeah.
So let's try to unlock those secrets.
Okay, so let's start with like the science behind the crispiness.
Okay.
The recipe mentions patting the chicken dry.
Right.
And it's like, it's not just a suggestion, it's crucial.
Okay. I'll be honest, I've definitely rushed that step a few times thinking, like, how big of a deal could it be?
Yeah.
Is it really that important?
It's huge. It's huge because, think about it, water, right, turns to steam. Steam equals moisture, and moisture is like the enemy of browning, right?
Okay.
We want that chicken skin to crisp up, not sort of steam itself and get soggy.
Right.
So that pat down, that really thorough pat down, inside and out, it makes a huge difference.
Okay, so that's like obstacle number one on our path to perfect chicken. Battling the moisture.
Yes.
And speaking of moisture, this recipe cranks that oven up to 425 degrees.
Yes.
What's the strategy there?
So high heat is our friend, right? At least initially, because that blast of heat is going to render the fat that's under the skin,
Yeah.
and it'll do it really quickly,
Okay.
letting those proteins on the surface brown before they even have a chance to overcook. So it's all about timing.
It's like a race against time, high heat, for that initial crisp up.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, let's talk about the lemon and the garlic going inside the bird.
Yes.
Because I'm all for that bright flavor.
Yeah.
But is there more to it than that? Am I just missing out?
There's always more to it. The aromatics are fantastic, right? They infuse the meat from the inside out as it roasts. But the lemon juice, that's doing double duty here.
Okay.
Citric acid is a natural tenderizer.
Oh.
So it actually breaks down the tough proteins in the meat, making it more succulent in the end.
So it's like a flavor boost and a tenderizing agent all in one.
Absolutely.
Man, whoever came up with this recipe was really thinking.
Right.
Okay. So speaking of flavor, let's move on to this herb butter because this recipe calls for thyme, rosemary, and parsley. Pretty classic combination.
Right. A classic.
But it's very specific about rubbing that herb butter under the skin.
Yeah.
And to be honest, that just seems a little fussy to me. Can't we just slather it on top? What's the difference?
We could, but we'd be missing out on something pretty important. So remember how we talked about how important it is to really dry that chicken in?
Yes.
So now we're strategically adding moisture back in a way that maximizes the flavor and the texture.
Okay, I'm listening. This is good.
So by slipping that herb butter under the skin, we're letting the fat render out as the chicken cooks. And that fat bastes the meat from the inside out.
It's like self-basting.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Exactly. So it's keeping it really, really juicy. And then as the butter melts, all those herbs get infused directly into the meat.
So we're like creating those crispy skin conditions, but then also making sure that the meat stays moist and flavorful.
Exactly.
It's a win-win.
Exactly. And, this is a technique that you can use beyond chicken, too.
Oh, interesting.
Think about, like, fish fillets cooked on papillote, or even like a butterfly turkey.
Yeah.
It's all about infusing that flavor from the inside out.
That's a great point. See, I'm already a better cook from this deep dive.
I love it.
All right. So the chicken is prepped. We've got our lemon and our garlic, our herb butters strategically placed. What's next?
Okay. So let's talk about the roasting pan itself. This recipe calls for a bed of chopped onions, carrots, and celery.
Yes.
It's not just for looks.
I was hoping you would say that because I was like, there's got to be more to it.
There's always more to it.
Yeah.
First of all, that veggie base, it's going to prevent the chicken from sticking to the pan,
Okay.
which can lead to uneven cooking.
Right.
But more importantly, as those vegetables roast, their natural sugars caramelize and add this like really deep flavor to the dish. Of course, let's not forget those roasted vegetables.
Yeah.
They make an amazing base for like a pan sauce or gravy later on.
Oh, totally. So we're building flavor on like multiple levels here.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so the recipe also mentions trussing the chicken with kitchen twine. Is that a step I can skip if I'm, pressed for time? What do you think?
I mean, it's up to you. Trussing basically helps ensure that the chicken cooks evenly.
Okay.
It does that by bringing the legs closer to the body.
Okay.
Because, those thighs, they tend to cook a bit slower than the breast meat,
Oh, right.
so it just helps even things out.
So if I'm feeling ambitious, trussing is a good move,
Yeah.
but it's not going to make or break the dish if I skip it.
Right, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, speaking of ensuring even cooking, let's talk about basting. This recipe suggests basting with pan juices after 45 minutes, but I've heard very different opinions on whether or not basting is even necessary. What's your take on that?
Yeah, basting is a bit of a culinary debate
Okay.
because on the one hand, it does add moisture
Right.
and it can help create a more evenly browned bird.
Okay.
But on the other hand, every time you open that oven door, you're releasing heat, right?
Right.
And so that can actually work against that initial crispy skin that we work so hard for.
So it's a balancing act.
Yeah, it is. It's a total balancing act.
When do you think basting is worth it then?
I would say if you're roasting like a larger bird
Okay.
or if you're using a particularly lean chicken, basting can be really helpful just for keeping things moist.
Okay.
And it's also a good idea if you're doing like a slower roast at a lower temperature.
Okay.
But if maximum crispiness is your goal,
Yes.
especially with a smaller chicken, I'd say you can probably skip it.
Okay. So use your best judgment
Exactly.
and just keep an eye on that skin.
Keep an eye on it.
Speaking of visual cues, how can we actually tell when the chicken is cooked through? This recipe mentions an internal temperature of 165 degrees.
Yeah, that's going to be your most reliable indicator.
Okay.
But there are some other signs that your chicken is ready too.
Okay. Like what?
So the juices, when you pierce the thickest part of the thigh, should run clear,
Okay.
not pink, clear.
Gotcha.
And then the leg should wiggle loosely in its socket.
Oh.
That means the connective tissue has broken down.
So a little wiggle test.
A little wiggle test, exactly.
Hey, thermometer at the ready, and I'll be sure to give that leg a wiggle.
Yes.
This is the part I always struggle with, though, is the resting period. The recipe says 10 to 15 minutes. Is that really necessary, or can I just dig in?
I know, it's so tempting to carve into it right away.
The worst.
But those 10 to 15 minutes are crucial
Okay.
for one very, very important reason, and that is juiciness.
Okay, so walk me through this magical resting period. What's going on inside the chicken during that time?
So think about it. When that chicken roasts, the heat causes the muscle fibers to contract, right?
Okay.
And all those juices, they get pushed towards the center of the meat.
Oh.
So if you were to cut into it right away, you'd basically release a flood of juices and you'd be left with a drier bird.
Oh, no.
Nobody wants that.
So it's we're giving the juices a chance to kind of relax and redistribute throughout the meat before we carve it up.
Exactly. Resting allows those muscle fibers to relax, reabsorb all those flavorful juices, and the result is a much more succulent, satisfying meal. It's like science in action.
It's true. I never thought of it that way. It makes so much sense. Okay, the resting period. Non-negotiable. Now, while we patiently wait, this recipe suggests serving with mashed potatoes or a simple side salad.
Classics.
Which are great, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm sensing we can get a little more creative here.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this chicken with the lemon and the herbs, it's so versatile,
So many possibilities. Where do we even begin?
Well, I think we start with the flavors we're already working with, right?
Okay, yeah.
So lemon and herbs, a roasted vegetable medley would be fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Asparagus, some cherry tomatoes, maybe a sprinkle of feta cheese.
Oh, I love that. Those flavors would be incredible together.
So good, right?
So,
or if you're feeling a little adventurous, we could go more of a Mediterranean vibe.
okay, yeah.
A quinoa salad, maybe, with some chopped cucumbers, bell peppers, fresh herbs, and a bright lemon vinaigrette.
That sounds delicious. See, this is what I love about these deep dives.
Right.
We're not just following a recipe. It's more than that. We're opening up this whole world of possibilities.
Totally.
And we can't forget about drinks. What pairs well with all this lemony, herby goodness?
Well, I mean, you can't go wrong with a crisp white wine.
Right.
A Sauvignon Blanc or a Pinot Grigio would be perfect.
Yeah, those would be delicious. And for those of us who maybe aren't drinking, what about a refreshing lemonade? Maybe with a sprig of rosemary in it.
Ooh, that's so nice.
Simple, but elegant.
Exactly. Exactly. And then, of course, we can't forget about the bread. A crusty loaf is essential.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta have something to soak up all those juices.
The best part, this is making me realize, the perfect roast chicken, it's not just about the chicken itself.
It's true.
It's like you're creating this whole experience,
Yeah,
right? It's
it's
the sides, it's the drinks, it's the bread. It all works together.
exactly that's what makes a meal, right?
Mm,
And, the beauty of it is that you can tailor that experience to your own taste. This recipe, it's really just a springboard.
I love that. So, to wrap up our roast chicken journey here, if there was just one thing you want our listeners to remember, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to experiment.
Hmm.
Try different herbs, play with different roasting vegetables, maybe even get creative with like a glaze or a sauce towards the end of cooking.
I love that.
The possibilities are kind of endless.
They really are. Well, I don't know about you, but I am suddenly starving and ready to put all of this newfound knowledge to good use.
Me too.
Thanks for joining me on this delicious deep dive. It's been a real treat.
The pleasure was all mine, truly. Happy roasting.